listener production.
The creators of this podcast would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which it is recorded. Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are the first storytellers of this land. We pay respect to their elders, past, present and emerging, as well as any Indigenous people who may be listening today.
Hello and welcome to TOFOP. No, fuck. How do I start it?
Everyone relax.
Everyone relax.
You can do
good
it.
Start. Off a good start. Everyone relax. This is TOFOP. I'm Charlie Clausen, and normally this is a bit where Will would come in and say he's Will Anderson, but he's not here because we are on our mid-year break, and so we have put together a, in inverted commas, a best of a TOFOP. I know that's it's a subjective term, best of, but see, these are some clips that we've enjoyed and you seem to have enjoyed over the years. I actually have our producer, Mike the Third, here. G'day, Mike.
G'day, Charlie. It's just the best of the year so far. So much has happened this year, just the past 6 months.
Yeah, well, you are normally in charge of sort of selecting the clips that we play, to promote on socials, and so you've also found these clips. Was there any guidelines? Like, where did you start to? You had to go to the river, the TOFOP River, and pan for gold. Where did you start? Like, what was your thought process?
I'll give you the producers behind the scenes.
Yeah, go on.
In on this is that when you do best ofs, there's no real best of.
What did I have on file already? Is that
there's
the
no
answer?
real best of.
Yeah.
It's really gut feeling. It's intuition. It's I remembered this. I like this. The one bit I wanted to play in this episode, I couldn't find it. But you know what? I'll find it and I'll put it at the very end of the episode. This is the funniest clip. I couldn't find it, but let me find it later and chuck it in at the end.
Okay, well, that's something to look forward to. But we'll get into the clips. As many of you know, we've talked about the Donut King a lot. Probably too much for a show that is not sponsored by the Donut King. But before we spoke about His Royal Highness the Donut King, there was another king that we spoke about. You may remember this guy, the Liver King. Well, the Liver King's, his downfall was the fact that he denied ever using steroids. He was asked multiple times on multiple shows, and the most obvious thing in the world, he kept denying. And so it was just a matter of time.
People would be like, hey, you really look like you're on steroids. Are you on steroids? Yeah. And he'd be like, no, what makes you think that? And everyone's like, because you look exactly like you're on steroids. So I will ask you one more time, are you on steroids?
You know the weirdest thing about him, which I didn't realize until pretty much this was all over, but I was reading some article about him and they're saying how he's only 5'7", which is incredibly petite. Like, that's kind of Tom Cruise size. And so those muscles are even more bizarre. Like, if you saw, it would look like a tiny little condom crammed with walnuts walking down the street towards you if you saw him.
I mean, you don't impress me much. I don't want to be all Shania Twain on your ass, Liver King, but like, you're 5'7", and like you got a bucket of fucking nuts, like a bucket of raw nuts that you're chewing on. Like, come on.
Ah, such good times, good memories. It seems like a lifetime ago, doesn't it, that the Liver King was a hot topic. I don't even know. I haven't searched the Liver King in a long time. Hopefully he's doing okay. Hopefully he's just not eating testicles for breakfast. Funny story about Liver King. You just heard then at the end, Will talk about, hey, you're 5'7", blah, blah, blah. I was talking to normies, like people in my actual real life, not listeners to TOFOP. I'm pretty much doing the same bit about Liver King. He's like this tiny little muscle-bound freak. And I said, oh, he's tiny, he's 5'7". And this guy that I was talking to, I'd only just met that day, was like, I'm 5'7". You've never seen me backtrack faster than, 5'7" is an adequate
This guy
height.
eats testicles. Come on, you're not eating testicles, are you?
No, he wasn't eating testicles. But do you think 5'7", I just thought that was a short height. I thought the average height of a male is 5'10", but maybe I'm wrong. I mean, how tall are you? You seem quite tall.
I'm 6 foot.
Yeah, mate.
But now I'm worried I'm going to be one of those guys. I always thought I was 6 foot, but I'm actually 5 something.
I am not 6 foot, but I'm an actor, and so I lie constantly when I'm filling out, my height and weight. I would say I'm 6 foot. I'm actually 5'10". But anyway, let's move on to the next clip, which is mysteriously titled "Alarm Clock." I have absolutely no memory of what this is. Do you want to give me a clue?
I mean, you bought something off online.
Oh,
And this might be the first time this has happened, but you bought something online that you didn't like.
yeah. Okay. Yeah. So this is a story about why you shouldn't drink and go on Instagram late at night and shop. Definitely don't shop on Instagram.
That's right. You bought it and you had to try and figure out how to get rid of it.
Well, back to my 3-in-1 phone charger. So you speculated that I would be lucky to get half, more like $50.
Yeah.
So I listed it initially as $125.
Mm-hmm.
No bites. No bites at all. Oh no, I got one bite from one dude who offered me $50 for it. And for a moment I thought it was you. It's like as Will signed into Gumtree.
Certainly did not got a bite. You did not get a bite. You got a little nibble. You entered into a negotiation at that point, but 50's too low. 50's come in too low. If you've started at 125, you're not going to 50 immediately.
Yeah, exactly. And it's funny because there's these automated responses on Gumtree when you're sort of responding to kind of inquiries. And at first I was so insulted. I was like, I'm going to let this guy know what I think. But then there was one which was like, I was actually hoping for a little bit more or something like that. So I sent that off and he was like, fine, okay. And then another guy came in and offered me $90. And I went, done, sold. Like you'd spooked me. You'd spooked me.
He's probably friends with the fucking guy who offered you 50. He goes, you go in, offer him 50, spook him, get inside his head. I'll swoop in, offer him 90. Bang, bang, job done.
I was feeling pretty good about $90 bucks in cash. And he said it was going to be he came around to get it and he said it was going to be a birthday present for his son-in-law. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting though. Like if you got that, so just say, your partner's father gives you a Christmas present and you open it and you notice that it's not sealed. Are you like, you bought this secondhand? And then does that kind of, I wouldn't have a problem. I get secondhand stuff all the time, but part of me would be like, is he regifting? Is he farming this off on me?
Well, I mean, if you've married his daughter or vice versa, like, in the relationship, but he said son-in-law, didn't he? That was what it was. Son-in-law?
Yeah, son-in-law.
Okay. So yeah. So presumably the son's married his son or his daughter, right? Like, to go into the family. I mean, they're happy with secondhand because that person is secondhand. He owned that person for the first 18 years of their life, and now they're out in the world.
I believe your children are your property. Yeah. Legally.
I mean, in a way, until they're adults, they kind of are your property. So all kids are secondhand. Like,
you wouldn't be slightly like, oh, I'm not worth a brand new purchase. Part of you wouldn't feel undervalued by that?
I wouldn't know. If it was what I needed, if I needed a charger and it was an appropriate charger, I'd be wrapped. It's fine if it works. I don't care. It's good. And in fact, if anything, I would actually, particularly in the part of the world in which you live, like the idea of not throwing things out and being able to like repurpose them or recycle them or, get something that is pre-loved instead of buying something that's brand new is actually probably adds value to the gift rather than negates value. Maybe this son-in-law is so environmentally conscious. The reason that he hasn't actually got himself a new charger is that he doesn't want to add to all the
only secondhand. Maybe the whole family has a rule: only secondhand gifts, nothing new. Let's be environmentally conscious. Let's be as woke as the writers of 90210.
Maybe they got a couple of rescue dogs at some stage, which, let's be honest, are just secondhand dogs, right? That's what a rescue dog is. It's a pre-loved, pre-owned dog, but they've got the great thing in dogs where they call them rescues, which is just branding really for secondhand, right?
Yeah.
So, but maybe this family really liked that. It made them feel good. We've given like an animal a second chance. Maybe we could apply this principle to everything in our lives. Maybe
rescue.
I'll get a rescue charger. Maybe that's what they call it. They say, I got you a rescue charger. And that actually makes it better than a normal charger.
Yeah.
Than a charger.
I mean, you don't want a rescue condom though.
You don't want one of those.
There's certain things which, like rescue condom, rescue hypodermic needle. There's a few things which need to be.
It doesn't apply to everything. No, I understand. I understand that. But like in this case, I think it adds some charm to it.
Do you think anyone ever has reused a condom?
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. People have washed them out and used them again. No doubt about that. Yeah.
I mean, you probably should. In this day and age of like being environmentally conscious. Like,
I know, but it just feels like one of those things where every time you wash it, somehow you're like
only if you're using the same, if it's with the same partner and you like it's birth control or something. I don't think you should be reusing it with like multiple different partners because who knows what's living in the in the latex. Oh my God. Oh, I never listened back to the show. And sitting here with Mike III and listening to these clips, I'm horrified. I apologize. On behalf of TOFOP Productions, I apologize to everyone. Don't know why I thought that was a good bit, but here we are. I mean, Mike, you have to cut the episodes.
Yeah, I cut them. There's sometimes I'm listening and I'm thinking, oh, I'd love to mention this thing. Why aren't you mentioning this thing? And one of those moments was when you were talking about poppy seeds. And the whole time you were talking about that, I was thinking, haven't you seen the Seinfeld episode? The Seinfeld episode where Elaine has the poppy and she's describing the exact thing that you talk about in this bit.
I do remember my mum saying to me once, we had a chat about when she, the many times she was pregnant, and I said, what was the weirdest food craving you ever got? And she said, she had this really burning desire once to eat an entire bowl of poppy seeds. She made my dad go out and find like as many poppy seeds as he could.
Okay.
She just ate them in a bowl.
I'm hearing she wanted some heroin, and he decided a bowl full of poppy seeds was as close as he was going to go. She goes, I'm in incredible pain. You need to go and score me some horse.
Some poppy seeds.
Yeah. And he's come back with a bowl of poppy seeds and gone, that's the best I could do.
What is the what is the tipping point from poppy seed to heroin? Like at what point? What do you have to add to like poppy seeds to make them bad?
How many poppy seeds?
They're so great. Poppies are beautiful to look at. The flowers, the seeds are delicious. At what point do they break bad? Like who comes along and what do you add to a poppy seed to make it break bad?
Okay, well, I'm going to the ozhealth, ozhealth.com.au website.
You didn't go to Heroin Growers Association, the HGA?
If you eat a lot of poppy seeds, can you return a non-negative drug test result? Okay.
I think you... So it's a non-negative. So you've tested positive. No, I don't think that's possible.
They're not calling it a positive. They're calling it a non-negative.
Non-negative.
Right?
Yeah.
So, the answer is yes, you can. Poppy seeds can contain opiates and codeine. Australian-grown poppy seeds are known to be particularly rich in opiate content. A teaspoon of seeds, 5 grams. So would you eat more than a teaspoon of poppy seeds at a time?
Yeah, I'd say in just that one slice of toast I had, there was more than a teaspoon. It's covered in the bastards.
Don't you be doing a drug test then? Because apparently a teaspoon of poppy seeds can result in a strong non-negative result and a confirmed positive lab test. All right, you junkie.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think if I'm forced to do a drug test for some reason, that's probably the least of my worries.
Okay, whenever possible, OzHealth recommends declaring poppy seed ingestion if it happens a day or so before an on-site test. So this is your classic.
Shit.
This is your classic cover story
Yeah.
for your heroin addict, right?
Yeah,
Who wants
this
to
is
get
great.
away with the fact that they're doing heroin. All you've got to do is get that mythical bowl of poppy seeds that your mother was craving at that time. And instead of, say, snacks or M&Ms on the, in the kitchen on the table, they just have this big bowl of poppy seeds.
I didn't realize I was like dancing with danger, just come back from Southeast Asia where the attitude towards heroin, like I could have ended up in the Bangkok Hilton if they'd decided to test me for some reason.
Man, this guy's trying to come into the country with an entire loaf of toast up his ass.
Oh, this bread is so good. There is a bakery, a local bakery here that is like, I actually had to wean myself off it. Like, the kind of bread which is so good. You just eat it on its own. Like if you get it fresh, you don't even need butter. It's that goddamn good. It's so tasty. And I weaned myself off it, because I was just eating too much of it. And once you're in the bakery too, it is like a drug dealer. It's like, yeah, you come for a loaf of bread, but have you checked out the donuts? Have you checked out the Boston
pastry?
Have you
ever thought of
First
stale?
one free, baby.
Yeah.
First taste is free.
How do you feel about a baklava croissant?
Oh my God. And they have the brioche donuts. It's amazing with fresh raspberry. Anyway, the point being, I weaned myself off it. Partly for that, but partly because Jem is gluten intolerant. And so she was like, can you just get gluten-free bread? And Iona, it turned out, liked the gluten-free bread. And I was like, okay, I can live with this. It's quite a nice gluten-free bread. And then after having bought it for about a year, I decided to check the price of it before I actually purchased it. And I was like, fuck this. We cannot afford gluten-free bread. Well, Gemma, what we'll do is we'll buy gluten-free, but that's yours. No, Iona and I cannot touch that because that's like, in my house, my mum would have called that the good bread. She would have put it in the crystal cabinet with all the other fine things we had, but we cannot afford to eat that more than once a month.
What you need, you know how sometimes you'll find a little corner shop that is willing to sell people like individual cigarettes? Yeah. They won't say a whole packet, but they'll just like that's. You just need to find someone who's willing to sling you a slice when Gemma feels like some toast, because you don't need to be investing in an entire loaf of bread. That feels to me like, there's going to be wastage involved. There's got to be freezing involved.
She's not eating it every day.
No, you just need like a local bread dealer who's willing to just slice you off like a slice every now and again.
And it would be great if like my phone was seized and they checked my WhatsApp and they're like, you're clearly communicating with this drug dealer. Look at this kind of pseudonyms you're using. Bread? You want a slice of bread? I'm like, no, literally.
I want one slice of bread. Well, you do a drug test. Hang on, it says here you're on heroin. No, it's poppy seed bread. It is poppy seed.
TOFOP, the show that rips off one of the most famous comedies ever screened on television and tries to repackage it as our own. When it comes to repackaging trite old debates, we entered the fray on something that has been going for ages. And I had a bit of a bee in my bonnet about this because every year it comes up, and that is the debate about whether or not Die Hard is a Christmas film.
You were surprisingly angry about this.
Every fucking year that they just trot out that old trope, and like, who cares? It's not funny. I think it was funny the first time that person made the observation, hey, it's a Christmas movie. But now it's become this kind of like fucking Michael Scott tired old joke. That's what she said. Who gives a fuck? It is or it isn't. It's a film set at Christmas. Like, I mean, it's Schrodinger's Die Hard. That's what I say.
It is weird, isn't it? Because like, is Home Alone a Christmas movie because it happens at Christmas?
Yes.
So then Die Hard is a Christmas movie, I guess.
Who fucking cares?
Who cares? It doesn't matter. It's a movie.
Lethal Weapon takes place at Christmas as well.
Christmas movie then, I guess.
Who gives a fuck? Anyway, so last week, my brother-in-law...
Is the movie Halloween a Halloween movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What are you talking about?
Or is it just a movie that happens to take place at Halloween?
It's both. What are you talking about?
Oh, right. So you're fine with this being both, but Die Hard, it doesn't fucking matter, apparently.
No. Oh, okay. No, I have no... Look, fucking it's a horror movie that takes place at Halloween. It is also a movie about Halloween. Yeah. Is it a documentary on the origins of Halloween? No, it's not. But you idiots, it's not funny. Like, it was funny when someone made the observation 15 years ago. Now it's just fucking annoying. And the fact that, like...
I'm going to start the Halloween isn't a Halloween movement. I'm going to be like, it's not. It's just, you know what? It's just a slasher film that happens to be set at Halloween. But there is never actually any explanation of the fact that, other than that's when it originally happened, there is no connection to Halloween itself, is there? Like Michael Myers,
he gets his mask.
Michael Myers doesn't like look forward to Halloween every year and just go, "That's my time to kill."
Well, no, he does. That's kind of the whole thing. So
I know, but there's never a bit in the movie where it's like, "It's Halloween, it's time for me to kill." It's more about this is the anniversary of when this original murder took place, right?
Yeah, but he's not.
He's never inspired. No, it just happened to happen at Halloween. Very much like Die Hard happened to happen. Like,
I don't know that that's true. I think that Michael Myers was biding his time. So, like, the prologue is, 8-year-old Michael Myers murders his sister and her boyfriend, or maybe just his sister, and then you jump forward to present day. Jamie Lee Curtis is a high school student, and Mike Myers busts out of prison. I think that is the triggering point. I think Michael Myers, I've got to make that distinction.
He, as a serial killer, he is groovy, baby.
Michael Myers was sitting in a mental institution staring at a wall for 17 years. And then Halloween comes around and like the Manchurian candidate, he is the Halloween candidate.
There's never any moment in any of the Halloween films where Michael Myers seems to be triggered by something that is Halloween related. I feel like that's a false reading of the, like he is triggered by the fact so if he had happened to murder like his sister on Christmas Day, for example, like then he would be doing it on the anniversary, which would be Christmas. But it isn't actually Christmas itself that triggered the murder in the first place. And I would argue with the Halloween films, there is never in the mythology of the Halloween films any indication that it was the fact that it was Halloween that led to the murder.
I think there is in the later, like the terrible films, I seem to think there is some, well, even in the kind of reboots, the new ones that they've done, there is some kind of, I haven't seen the latest one, but some kind of assertion that he's supernatural, that there might be some kind of spirit inhabiting him. So maybe it is like the evil spirit of Halloween.
It has nothing to do with Halloween. No.
You don't know that?
No, I do know that because I have watched all the Halloween films and not once in them is there ever a moment where Michael Myers,
he wakes up with a spring in his step. Can't wait to grab his butcher's knife.
Well, there's never a moment, even in like the reboots and stuff, like he might get triggered by seeing his mask, for example. Yeah. That might be the thing that triggers him to like have those memories and try to escape. But there's never actually a moment in them where he like sees a carved out pumpkin and then suddenly goes from like Mike Myers walking around to Michael Myers wanting to stab people.
I'm going to type in, does Michael Myers kill because it's Halloween? Because it's Halloween?
He doesn't. He just happens to kill on Halloween.
On Halloween. Yeah. It's, what do they say? It's coincidence, not cause, or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. So it's correlation, not causation.
Correlation, not causation. That's right.
That's going to be my argument. Halloween is not a Halloween movie. It is correlation. The murders just happen to happen at Halloween, and therefore happen on the anniversary of those murders every year, which coincidentally, of course, happens to be Halloween because Halloween happens at the same time every year. But it is actually completely unrelated to the event that is Halloween.
I found an article on the Mary Sue, which is a genre website. Here's why Halloween's Michael Myers kills in every timeline. So they have broken down all the different Halloween films. So cue the Halloween theme in whatever version you love the most. Michael has entered the room and is giving me the details about his reasons for killing in every timeline. Is this, hang on, wait a minute, is this true? What's going on?
We sat down with Michael Myers and asked him a series of questions.
BuzzFeed listicle. Yes. Is Halloween a Halloween movie? You know, when we recorded that bit and Mike the Third and Nick, our awesome socials guy, we got together and we talked about, that is a ready to go viral discussion point. Like, is Halloween a Halloween movie? If you can,
this will set the comments on fire.
Yeah, like we were so certain that this is going to be the one. This is the thing this is our Liver King moment. We're just going to go nuts across the internet. Surprisingly lukewarm response to our is Halloween, to the point where I think Nick started commenting. Like Nick comments anonymously in our comments trying to spark debate. And not many people took it up. I was a little disappointed.
Hey, you know, Nick's favorite holiday is Halloween because he lived in America for a while. And we're dying to know if you're still keen to possibly do a Halloween ghost related
100%
series later in the year. You still interested in that?
Yes. Yeah. TOFOP's paranormal, the X-Files, TOFOP's X-Files, or the paranormal investigations of TOFOP. Absolutely. No, I definitely want to get into that. That's a little bit of a tease in the lead up to Halloween. I'm going to be doing some TOFOP with friends about spooks and ghosts and goblins and all that kind of shit. I love talking about that stuff. Mike, I've already forgotten what's the next clip we got coming up.
Well, let's jump to that because there was a great bit where you talked about ghosts a little while ago and about what you would say to your family if you came back.
Yeah.
Let's have a listen.
I just want a straight answer. Why is it always like someone's coming through? It's an older gentleman. Like, just fucking say, hello, this is Norman F. Clausen. I'm Charlie's father. I was there at his birth in blah, 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 you know. Like, just say it. Like, don't be some mysterious, shadowy figure. And then be prompt. No clues about take this fucking, watch to a man in a lighthouse, blah, 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 blah. Like, just in writing even. Sort of, hey, look, I've got proof. Can we just skip the whole, Charlie's going crazy, he's losing his mind, blah, blah, blah. Like, this is ghost handwriting. That's his signature. Look at it, or something like that. Or take a photograph with me, or something like that.
I know what you mean about the idea of like there's a message coming through and this is the message. Like my real will is behind the painting or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, really directly give me the information that you need to convey. But otherwise, what can you convey in that short period of time that is important regardless? Like if I went to a psychic and they were a genuine psychic and they only had, okay, let's say you're on the other side. So let's, put yourself, you're your dad, like, again, obviously I don't ever wish this upon you or your family, but let's just say that you have like died earlier, like Gemma and Iona are still alive. Iona goes to a psychic one day when she's a teenager and like, this is your opportunity. Finally, you have an opportunity to be able to talk to her as like a teenager. Yeah. Like, what are you trying to say from the other side in that moment? Like you have one shot at it. What are you trying to say?
See your teacher up there. That motherfucker used to stutter back in primary school. We used to call him Stuttering Stanley. Just say it say it once. The kids will love it. You'll be the queen of the school. It's like I'm trying to coach my kid to be cool from beyond the grave, and everything. I'm just such a dinosaur. Everything I say gets her cancelled. It's all like there was a comedian called Andrew Dice Clay. Go up to these guys and say it starts hickory dickory dock.
Now this guy, when we were in high school, he got his testicles all twisted up. Now I'm going to give you a name in a second that you're going to have to yell out.
Yeah, it's a good point. Like, what is the urgent thing that needs to be said? I mean, if you've been murdered, I understand that there's some urgency there, or they're in danger. They're in danger. But I would assume that, like, if it happened now, everything's good right now. I don't have there's no urgent messages to deliver. I would just want them to know what I hope they know. That is, I love them and I will always love them. I mean, if I haven't expressed that, I think it's a bit fucking late. Like, that I've been hit by this fucking car.
Yeah.
I mean, how fucking shallow are you, Dad? Like, who are you trying to butter up? In fact, I think they would get suspicious if a psychic said, "I've got your husband and your father here. He says he loves you." It's like, well, that's a bit weird. Yeah. Why is he fucking so insistent on saying that? What's he
about that now?
Yeah. Is he up there with Marilyn Monroe?
Who's he fucking up there? Yeah, it feels like
I don't know if you can punch a ghost in the dick, but that's what's going to happen.
If the premise is that ghosts are only people who have unresolved things, like, because otherwise, what is the premise? That all these people are living in some beyond space and time where they're like, if you're living in some,
that's the premise.
Heaven-like. So the premise is that only ghosts are only ones that have something unresolved, right? And aren't able to pass on to the right. So the idea is then that if I'm at a psychic and like, my dad comes through or like, my granddad comes through or whatever, I immediately feel terrible about that because that means they're caught in some place where there's something unresolved and they can't move on, right? Like I don't want to hear from them. I want to go in there and get like we're getting no one. Yeah. Everyone you've ever met has happily passed on to the place that they need to be and they don't have anything unresolved and they're definitely not hanging around and watching you masturbate. It is fine. They're in the good place.
There's a great bit of circularity in that, Will, because my mum's attitude when I was a teenager was always like, she wasn't one of those mums where I had to call her as soon as I arrived at so-and-so's house or, when we got into the city, I had to call or whatever. Her philosophy was always, if you're in trouble, that's when I'll hear about it. Until then, I'll just assume that everything's good. And it was a great lesson. It put more responsibility on me. So perhaps that's what my mum is telling me. By not contacting me, everything's fine, transferred over to the eternal, it's all good, don't worry about it. Meanwhile,
having a great time.
There is a Tatslotto ticket. It's in my jacket pocket of the tweed jacket. And the kid was a stutterer. Tell him he's a motherfucking stutterer. Yeah, great. Bullying kids with a stutter. That's all the great content you get. Look, it was a fictional kid. We're talking about Stuttering Stanley from The Sixth Sense. If you've just tuned in, and I don't know why, because this is not a radio broadcast. It's a podcast, so I don't know how you have just tuned in. know what we love to do on this show is we love to do lyric breakdowns. And you might remember we did a lyric breakdown of I'll do anything for love, but I won't do that, which led to a wider discussion around Mr. Loaf, Mr. Loaf, first name Meat. And Will told a story about there's an infamous performance that Meatloaf did at the AFL Grand Final about a decade ago. I actually had not seen it at the point of discussing it. I'm not sure if you can tell when you hear this clip, but Will was there with his dad, and this was their take on this performance.
Well, I was at the 2011 Grand Final with my dad when Meatloaf famously, like it's one of the, if people don't know, if you don't follow AFL football, if you don't follow bad music fails at major sporting events, it was atrocious, like just absolutely terrible. He couldn't hit any of the notes. It was like rainy and the weather was terrible and the sound system wasn't working. And it was just famously terrible.
He looked really, I mean, I literally just watched it 2 hours ago because I'd never seen it before. And you're right, like he can't hit any of the notes. It's a really miserable day, but he just genuinely looks tired. I mean, he would have been late 60s, maybe early 70s or something when he was up there, but it's just, everything's an effort. And he's kind of singing style, like he does a lot of that groaning and stuff anyway, like when he was a young man. But now he's groaning.
Like he's just like recording it, but also trying to take a shit at the same time. Do anything for love.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like he's choking to death. It's really just like an upsetting performance. But the crazy thing is, too, the clip I was watching, like the band is rocking. Like, it's like a fucking, musical theatre sort of glam rock band. So they're just rocking out. And his backup singer, or the woman he does a duet with, has got an amazing voice, which just makes him seem more incompetent. The fact that he cannot keep pace with his band, that he can't like harmonise with this singer, it's unbelievable.
So my father, who has never in his life owned a musical album, never bought a record, never bought a cassette tape, doesn't, as far as I'm aware, listen to music at all. Like he listens to the wireless. He listens to programs about farming. Is he like
and
a caveman
brought into the future, like who like gets scared of the sun, stuff like that? If you play music, does he shriek and hide at the corner?
Just no interest. Like It doesn't even have like a firm opinion. Like I don't like music. It's just like, nah, not of interest.
Not for me.
Not even on my radar. No thanks. Yuck. And so,
you can keep your notes and your melodies and your rhythm. I don't need them. All I need is a cow in a field.
I am there at the grand final with my father, standing out in the cold and the rain, and Meatloaf is performing. And there were a lot of bad reviews of Meatloaf that day. But my father doesn't listen to music, and he doesn't have the same standards that he can apply to music that anybody else does in that circumstance. It's very much like me watching Bluey out of the context of not having watched Peppa Pig or Dora the Explorer. It's not like you're going, this is great because I've seen how bad this can be, or vice versa, this is terrible because I've seen how good this can be. And I remember at the end of it just going, oh, I think that was pretty terrible, and turning to my dad. And my dad said this, which is the only time in my life that I've ever heard him comment on music. This is what he said. He said, was that meant to sound like that?
How many episodes have you done of TOFOP, do you think? Do you know what we're up to?
This is a curly question because the Great Reset happened not that long ago. So so how many episodes of TOFOP, including TOFOP with Friends, that we do now?
Yeah, well, including TOFOP
and Two Guys One Urn.
Yeah, what I'm trying to get to is you've done a lot. You've done a lot of episodes.
Jesus Christ! I mean, and why that was a very indirect way of getting to that answer.
In the last clip, you might have noticed you sounded a little bit different. You sounded like you had a cold, or there was something. What was actually going on was there was a technical problem that you were experiencing.
Well, I had to jump on a call with Mike. He was going to be my technical support, and he was going to walk me through it. And so we looked at a bunch of possibilities and couldn't work it out. And then I called him back, and this is what went down. Hey, mate.
Hi, mate. What's happening up there?
Yeah, we're not getting good sound. And I went back and I checked all the backups. I went to the Rodecaster. That was still sounding crap as well. I unplugged and replugged everything in. Restarted everything, but I discovered what the problem is.
Yeah.
I wasn't speaking into the right side of the microphone.
It happens.
More often than you realise on this show.
Oh, no. Are you serious?
I mean, everyone's doing nostalgia, mate. You saw the new Flash trailer. They put Batman like Michael Keaton. It's like a bit of nostalgia. Mate, I could not figure out for the life of me why the fuck, just for 1 week, the podcasts that I'd done all sounded terrible, all sounded really roomy. You could hear me. And even on the Roadcast, which is my interface, which is always like the purest sound, sounded fucked up. And then I realized, it's like, oh, you know what I did? I took off the pop filter and I readjusted the cradle that the mic sits in. And I guess when I put the mic back in, I screwed it in. And when you look at this particular brand, this is the NT1, the Rode NT1. Rode, very supportive of the show. Thank you very much. It has a little gold dot on the side you're meant to talk into.
Because Rode know that the people who might be using their equipment are idiots and they need a little gold dot to know which bit to speak into. But it turns out that if you cover that up with the pop shield, you can't see that.
But it did make me think back when you and I in the first 30 eps or whatever, and the most common argument was like, what's fucking side of the microphone to talk to? And you were like, isn't there a button or a light or something that tells you what side of the microphone? Yeah, there is. Or Rode heard that and were like, I know how we can make a fortune.
Well, there always should be some sort of indication of which the correct side is. I think that they need to make it even more obvious than the little gold dot though. Like, I mean, I would literally on that, because there's no reason, like, where you speak into on the microphone, they couldn't just write on that, speak into this side. Like, or put an arrow into that. Like, it could be bigger than that.
In case you don't speak English, just like a cartoon head, the mouth's open and 3 lines coming out. Did you think when we were doing this compilation episode that you would be commenting on your own clip? Like, that's weird, right? You've just had to listen to yourself, and now you're in it. Now you're commenting on your comment.
Oh, this show is so meta. This is the most meta podcast. The fact we're doing meetings in the podcast, about things we could do. I think it fits with the vibe of TOFOP.
I had someone call me today. This often happens. Well, not often happens, but every now and then I'll get a phone call or a message from someone who's like, hey, I've started a podcast. Can I get some advice? And it's always like, the first question is, how do I make money from this? And my answer is always like, I don't know. I honestly have no idea. We have a Patreon and that's keeping us afloat and that's about it. But then they always want to know how do we encourage the community and stuff? And I always say, I think the best thing that we do on TOFOP is we have our production meetings on air. Like, it's transparent. Like, no one's getting lied to. We're desperate for money. We're looking for advertisers. Hey, you may hear some ads coming up. And we include people in the process. So that way, when they start hearing ads, they're like, well, it's not like it's come out of nowhere. Like, these guys have been on their knees for quite some time. So it makes sense. I don't know it's good advice for anyone else's podcast, but it seems to work for ours.
I feel like as a listener, we're sort of rooting for you to get there, to get the sponsorship. So when you hear an ad, you're like, oh, great. This is good for the show.
Thank God Charlie can feed his daughter.
You guys get some cash flow. It helps you do more of the show, right? So it's in my interest. But yeah, no, there's that buy-in as a listener, which is a unique thing. Just speaking of cash flow, if you need some money in case you get, injured or personal stuff goes on in your life like you had recently?
Yeah, lovely segue there, Mike. Very flawless, seamless. No one would pick that up at all. Yes, there was a time where I was injured. I mean, what I'm noticing as we listen to these clips is a large portion of TOFOP's content is related around my idiocy. And this was a little incident that happened to me when I was doing the most difficult thing of all, trying to put a cushion cover on a cushion. I tried to put a cover on a cushion and I sprained my finger and it still hasn't recovered.
Which finger are we talking about here? Like
my ring finger on my non-dominant right hand.
Okay, so on your right hand, your ring finger on your right hand. Okay, so but not the finger you wear a ring on. Yeah, that one there. And you've sprained it. Like in what act? Like, is it putting the cushion back in and trying to zip it up? Is that the moment where it got sprained? Like, what exact thing were you doing with this cushion?
There are moments, Will, in which I think that I have grown and learnt and, my knowledge base has expanded. And then there's other moments where I'm like, how can you still be doing dumb shit like this? So this time of the year in the Northern Rivers, it gets a bit humid. and it's mold season. And so the last 2 years I've been, I've had to deal with mold outbreaks. And so this year I was determined, I'm going to minimize the mold impact. It's coming, but I'm going to be running the dehumidifiers as much as I can. First sign of any mold anywhere, I'm going to be cleaning that shit.
It was, you know what the original draft of M. Night Shyamalan's Old was? It was actually a beach where people get mold. It was set in Byron Bay. That was the first draft, and somebody was like, "This is pretty good, M. Night, but what if they got old instead of mold?"
Well, I just started watching The Last of Us, and that is like living in the Northern Rivers, just fucking people just contaminated by mold, and it is fucking gross. Like, it's disgusting when you find that mold outbreak, and then it's weird. It's sort of like a horror movie where you'll go in and you'll go, "Oh, what's that? There's a bit of fuzz on the wooden handle of this whatever." And then you'll turn your head and you'll see that, oh my God, like everywhere where there's organic material is covered in green and black shit. It's disgusting. Jackets, shirts, fucking everything. Can't leave food out, Will. Oh, you left a bit of food on that T-shirt and you left it overnight? Well, guess what? There's a forest growing on it now.
You've had a visit from Moldy Locks. She's come in during the night. She's gone room to room and she's spread her mold all over the joint.
Moldy Lock is just this like decomposing, like Victorian era girl. Like the blonde ringlets are all like tattered. She's wearing like a pinafore that's just got its broken holes ripped in it. You can see her ribs, just like green crumbling flesh.
You know how it's compulsory for every comedian in Australia to write a children's book. In fact, I believe I am the only comedian in Australia who hasn't written a children's book at this stage. Could Moldy Locks be my book? That feels like more than enough of an idea you need for a children's book. Like the rest of it kind of writes itself. Basically, it's a Goldilocks story, but like it's just a whole bunch of things about moldiness as well thrown in, and that's just
all these comedian authored books. They're all like so-and-so can't stop farting. So-and-so won't stop picking his nose. So-and-so pissed his pants. Like, I don't know. It's like, it's always like some bodily humor.
But
and
what hasn't been used yet is mold. This is what I'm saying. Like, this is a good zone because it's close to those bodily functions, but it hasn't been mined for all its comedic potential at this stage. It's a bold move forward, or maybe a mold move forward.
I love how when you say you've sprained your finger, Will says, "Which finger? Let's dig into it. let's go deeper."
That's his thing, though. Like, Will, I think. So Will and I, we're podcast, co-hosts, but I think there's also an element of Will is like my psychologist, or not a psychologist. Like, you know how in the Royal Tenenbaums, Bill Murray is a psychologist who's studying that like freakish teenager who does weird things and he's writing a paper on him. I think that's like Will. Will is going to write a paper on me at some point. The strange minutiae that makes up my life. I mentioned before, Mike, that we love a lyric breakdown on this show, and 2023 has been no exception. This was actually suggested by a listener, and we discovered a lot about Mr. John Bon Jovi with our breakdown of the Bed of Roses lyrics. Apart from the chorus, can you think of anything from this song?
No, I can only think of the chorus. I literally don't even know how the rest of the song goes. Like, I can remember the chorus really well. I want to lay you down on a bed of roses because tonight we sleep on a bed of nails.
Something about Holy Moses?
Holy Moses as the Holy Ghost is, or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No, anyway, we'll get to that. But that's the bit I can remember. I can't remember any of the rest.
Okay, so this is it won or was nominated for a Juno Jack Richardson Producer of the Year Award in 1992. Okay. Okay. Sitting here, wasted and wounded, at this old piano, trying hard to capture the moment this morning, I don't know.
Oh,
because a bottle of vodka is still lodged in my head.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, he said he was wounded.
And some blonde gave me nightmares. I think she's still in my bed.
Oh, okay. By nightmares, does he mean chlamydia?
As I dream about movies, they won't make of me when I'm dead. Now, that's difficult. So as I dream about movies, they won't make of me.
Yeah. I'm not.
Is this from Bon Jovi's perspective then? You think he's not playing a character. This is John being John, because they're only making movies about famous people.
No, but isn't John Bon Jovi's not like, still drinking a bottle of vodka a night and like waking up with a random girl in his bed and
No, 1992 he might have been.
Oh yeah, he might have been.
And so I reckon too that the idea of him wanting to still be a star, because he had acting aspirations. Didn't he go on to be in Moonlight and Valentino?
Yeah, I think he might have been in the West Wing. I mean, playing John Bon Jovi again, but like I do think he did some acting. Okay, movies they won't make of me when I'm dead. You know what though? Here's what I'd say: they could definitely make a Bon Jovi movie, like when he dies.
Is he big enough?
Yes, Bon Jovi, like one of the biggest bands of all time.
Really?
Like there would definitely be an audience for. Yeah, absolutely. How many albums do you think the Bon Jovi have?
I'm looking it up right now.
What would be your guess if you had to guess how many albums?
I don't know. I'm not big on Bon Jovi. I'd say 10. 10 albums. Yes. So they've been around, 30 years?
No, I mean, how many million albums do you think that they have sold?
Millions of albums. Like 100 million. Okay, is that a lot?
Yeah, 100 million is a lot. But George Michael sold 100 million, so I would have thought that they have sold more.
On par with that.
They have sold over 130 million records worldwide, making one of the best-selling bands of all time. And, like, you've got John Bon Jovi, you've got Richie Sambora. Like, I mean, this is – I mean, they've made movies about things that are not as big as Bon Jovi. An iconic soundtrack.
So it's like a biopic. It's your traditional music biopic about the formation.
They're like Jersey Boys or something, aren't they? Is that what? Yeah.
Jersey Boys. Oh. That's what we call the film. Jersey Boys in brackets.
Not that one.
No, not that one.
Colon the Bon Jovi story.
The other Jersey Boys. So, okay, 1984, they released the first two albums. It would be called
Living on a Prayer, by the way.
Which cracked the top 40.
Definitely called Living on a Prayer. The Bon Jovi story.
Okay. So, not Slippery When Wet. That sounds like one of your adult entertainment categories.
You know what? That's also a good name, though. We've got a few titles that we can choose from.
Yes. We have fun on the show, don't we? We have fun. You know, one time I didn't have fun, Mike, was when I took my daughter to the pub. And I thought I'd indulge in a tradition that is as old as Australia itself, and that is letting your kid have a sip of the foam in your beer. Well, at least I thought that was a tradition in Australia until I realised that no one else in the bar approved of that. I mean, you're a father. Man. Have you ever let your child sip your beer?
No, and this is the thing about being a parent. There's no manual. But this is probably one of those things that probably didn't require to be in the manual anyway, because you just shouldn't do it.
Well, let this be a warning to all of you. I was out with Iona at our local pub, and I was getting Iona a juice box and I was getting myself a scooey. It's a schooner for anyone who lives outside of New South Wales. Do they have the schooners in? They don't know how to do it in Victoria, do they? Do the schooners in Adelaide?
I mean, there used to be a real state-by-state,
pots,
demarcation when it came to alcohol serving sizes. But I feel like as the borders have been crossed more by people, it feels like pubs have incorporated
globalization. Is that what you're saying?
Every measurement of drink that you can get is now available. Like, it's not a foreign language anymore.
The New World Order, that's what you're saying. I'm getting it, Will. I know what you're saying.
It's not like the rail gauges anymore where they had to change them at the state borders. I believe you can now get a schooner in a Victorian pub. But you're right. Schooner is like, for me, when I first moved to New South Wales from Victoria, schooner was like a foreign piece of language.
Yeah. Well, we grew up drinking like a smaller size drink. Anyway, that's not the discussion we're having. The discussion is that I ordered a schooner. Now, when I was a kid, I had very fond memories of when my father would come home from work and he would crack a long neck and he would pour himself a glass of beer. He would sit me on his lap and let me sip the foam off his beer, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so I get my schooner and I'm like, oh, he's a good like daddy-daughter bonding moment. I said, do you want to sip the foam off my beer? And
what?
She's like, yeah. And so I picked her up and she sipped the foam off my beer. And then I turned around and I swear to God, the entire bar was staring at me like, what the fuck are you doing?
Because you're like one of those horrible people on Instagram who makes their 2-year-old vape. Like, you're a monster. You're a news.com.au story.
But then I was like, I felt like, oh, okay, cool. So, obviously, put the drink down and didn't give her any more. And then I was thinking about it. I was like, in my head, and like had Mandela affected it. I was like, oh no, but there's no alcohol in foam. Like foam is the non-alcoholic part of the beer. Like that was just a fact that came to my mind. And my sister...
There's no alcohol in foam.
No, like I'm not saying this is true. I'm saying
No,
this is
it's
like,
not true. How could you possibly think that was true?
Potentially because my father had the same conversation with my outraged mother like
But what
40
do you think
years
the foam
ago.
is made of? The foam is just overly carbonated beer.
Will, I'm not saying like it's a rational thought or it's
Do you
even
think there's
logical.
no milk in the foam in the top of a cappuccino? Like it's made of the same stuff.
So my sister came to stay to help me out, to lend a hand. And I was telling her, I said, do you remember when we were kids and Dad used to, let us sip the foam out? And she's like, oh yeah. And I said, I did that with Iona. And she's like, you fucking what? You can't do that. And I'm like, well, I didn't mean to. Like it was just, I thought it was a cute father-daughter moment. It was like something, that we used to do that. She's like, you can't, like there's alcohol in the foam. I'm like, are you sure about that? Because for some reason I'd rationalized in my mind that there's no alcohol in foam. She's like, it's part of the same drink. What are you talking about?
Yes.
So
She's making very similar arguments to the ones that I immediately made because it's obvious.
So I was talking to a couple of mates who are also dads and running them through what I'd done. And they're like, oh yeah, like, no, you can't do that. And one of the dads said, I actually had a similar issue with my daughter because she saw Daddy drinking a beer and she was like, oh, I want to drink that. And so I let her have a sip and the taste was so repulsive to her. She's like, oh, yuck, Daddy's drink, no good. And so that's kind of killed her. And I was like, okay, well, that's my next step. So I let Iona take a sip of my next beer. Turns out she loves it. Well,
Loves
she
it.
fucking loves it.
She got a taste from that foam. You gave her the baby chino version of it first before she moved up to the real thing.
I'm screwed. I don't know what to do. Like, it's like, am I creating? Like,
maybe there should be a thing like when you can go to a cafe and the kids can get a baby chino, which is just the foam, none of the coffee.
Yeah.
Is there equivalent at the pub where you go in for a schooner and she just gets a little, like, Billy Brownless, this has really turned into our AFL football podcast, and I know this is TOFOP, but he refers to beers as frothies.
Frothies,
but
mate.
maybe there should be a product for juniors that is just all froth that you can take your kid down to the pub and they can have a little frothy.
Do they still make, and this is what they were called, fags, the lolly cigarettes?
Fads.
They're now
They're
fads.
called fads.
Okay, they were
now.
fags, and then they're fads. Do they still make those?
I believe so, but I think the latest thing they did was they took the red burning end off them. Okay. So now they're pretty much just white sticks.
A white musk stick, as they should all have been. What about Big Boss cigars? Have you seen one of those?
I haven't seen one for a while. I don't know. I mean, I've never been to a Big Boss cigar lounge. Maybe there's still some places where you can get one. I've never seen a sporting team celebrate after winning a championship by handing around some Big Boss cigars.
Are they going to bring out some like musk versions of vapes? Like, can you get some like lolly vapes?
Oh, yeah. Lolly vapes for kids. Well, I mean,
Chewable
vapes are
vapes.
already
for kids.
like for kids. They're all lolly flavors for that reason.
So what do you reckon, I do now? Like, so Iona is not like she's not like a bratty kid or a kid who gets, we give her treats from time to
she
time.
might be now that she's a drunk.
Well, this is the thing. Like, what is the best strategy forward? Is like, do I have to just now not drink around her so she doesn't ever see it? I mean, that's something I don't drink that much. So it is possible that I could, avoid drinking in front of her so she forgets about it. Because that's the other thing is 3-year-olds move on very quickly. At the moment, it's just she's all about the beer, man. She wants someone she wants to blow the top off a couple of frothies after a hard day's daycare. She wants to kick back, just pop the lid and a couple of frothies.
Look, I mean, there is a point, isn't there, where you don't want to make alcohol so taboo that it is enticing because it is taboo. But I do think that, I mean, personally, that is the moment where I'd be like, you know what, I'm going to at least have a break where she doesn't see me drinking for a while because because like you said, it doesn't take her very long to move on.
Yeah.
So it's not like you have to commit to, I'm never drinking in front of her again. Yeah. You just need to get to that period where she's distracted by something else.
Yeah, she just sees me in the backyard just pounding the vape. She's like, that looks fun. I don't know what I want to do next.
Daddy, you smell like bubblegum. This is great.
I saw Daddy with a hypodermic needle and a rope in the backyard wrapped around his arm. Oh, it's just exercising. Yeah, just exercising. I think your reaction to that bit says a lot about the decade you're born in, because I remember at the time there was a distinct line between people who were born in, say, the 80s and earlier to millennials and older. Millennials and older were outraged by what I'd done. But for a lot of people from my generation, they're like, of course, mate. You either sip the foam off your dad's beer or you go around at the end of a party and you drink the watered down wine out of wine glasses, which was a new one for me. But let's move on. Now, probably the most surprising discovery we made this year on TOFOP is the career of one Buckethead. We often have referred to Buckethead. He's just like a bit of an enigma that has held our interest for a number of years, but we'd never done a traditional old school TOFOP deep dive until this year. And the results were surprising, to say the least.
I don't remember a lot of people, but I absolutely remember Buckethead.
Is Buckethead the poor man's Wes Borland, or is Wes Borland the poor man's Buckethead?
No,
because they're both kind of goofy guitarists for heavy bands that have goofy outfits.
I think Wes Borland, Buckethead was in a better band, right? Yeah. But Wes Borland was...
I don't know. Was he? I mean, he was in a band that wrote better songs. I don't know that he was in a better band when he was playing with them, because I saw Buckethead and GNR.
Well, that's what I guess that's what I mean, is that GNR are a greater band than Limp Bizkit, right? That's what I'm going to say, right? Like, just in general in the history of rock and roll music. But Wes Borland is like one of the integral members.
Iconic. He's an iconic guitarist.
As opposed to Buckethead, who's like...
Shit. Look, I know it's a bit late in the episode to do I'm going to just type in Buckethead into Wikipedia, because what an enigma.
Buckethead came on. He's just your replacement guy. Buckethead could be the replacement for Wes Borland if Limp Bizkit got back together and Wes didn't want to tour. They'd call Buckethead.
Okay, so Buckethead is Brian Patrick Carroll. Born in 1969, known professionally as Buckethead.
How's your life? Known professionally as Buckethead.
A guitarist, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist. He's received critical acclaim for his innovative electric guitar playing.
Okay.
And spans several genres, including progressive metal, funk, blues, bluegrass, ambient, and avant-garde music.
I mean, it actually sounds like he's very impressive. So I reckon, don't call yourself Buckethead, because it undervalues.
He performs primarily as a solo artist, although he has collaborated with artists such as Bill Laswell, Bootsy Collins, Bernie Worrell, Iggy Pop, Les Claypool, Serge Tankian, Bill Moseley, Mike Patton, Viggo Mortensen. I didn't know Viggo Mortensen played music. Blah, 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 a bunch of people. He was also a member of Guns N' Roses from 2000 to 2004. He's recorded 435 studio albums. So that is a lot of albums.
Here's what we've discovered. Buckethead is one of the greatest artists of the modern times, and we've just been dismissing him as Buckethead for all this time.
435 studio albums, including 4 special releases and 1 EP. He's performed...
Now, Charlie, question.
Yeah.
With Buckethead, if he's coming in to play on your studio album, he's one of the greatest multi-instrumentalists there is. You're putting together an album. You're Viggo Mortensen. You're putting together your studio album, and you've gone, you know what? I need the best. I need the best. I need a guy who's got the track record, who's worked with some of the greatest artists of all time. That's who I need. Someone who's worked with Bootsy Collins and Mike Patton. This is the guy that I need. Does Buckethead wear the bucket into the studio?
The first meeting.
When he... no, I mean at all times. Is Buckethead, when he's in the studio making music, does he have the bucket on his head, or is the bucket... Because if he's known professionally as Buckethead, if he just rocks up to the studio and he's got no bucket on his head, are you really getting the full Buckethead experience?
Let's get into the Buckethead of it all. So also, just before we get into that, additionally, he's done music for movies, a bunch of movies: Saw 2, Ghost of Mars, Beverly Hills Ninja, Mortal Kombat 2, Last Action Hero. He's done a lot. Okay.
Sorry, I'm sorry for writing you off so prematurely, Buckethead.
Well, we didn't write him off. We just identified a certain era of Guns N' Roses that he was a member of. Okay, so
I know,
Buckethead,
but when I say Buckethead and Guns N' Roses, what the implication is the shit era of Guns N' Roses, where it turns out that like Buckethead was there doing his best.
Buckethead's got to eat, mate. Buckethead had to pay his rent. Buckethead performs wearing a KFC bucket on his head. Emblazoned
it is a KFC bucket?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, well, that's what it says in Wikipedia. And it's emblazoned with an orange bumper sticker that reads funeral in block letters and an expressionless plain white mask inspired by Michael Myers from the Halloween movies. At one point, he changed to a plain white bucket without a KFC logo, but subsequently reverted to his emblematic KFC bucket without a funeral sticker. He also incorporates a nunchuck and robot dancing in his stage performances.
I mean, that's a real mix, isn't it, by Buckethead?
But it does feel like Wes Borland, like I don't know if they ever cross paths, but when you look at the photo, like Wes Borland puts a lot more into his costumes, but there's a definite kind of crossover. There's an influence of some kind. Whether or not one influenced the other, I don't know which way, but they're very similar. He's got long hair, though. He looks like Slash with a bucket. Maybe it is Slash with a bucket on his head. Wouldn't that be a plot twist? Buckethead was credited by Guitar World as ushering in a new era of virtuosity while ranking the release of his debut album, Buckethead Land. Which was ranked as the 45th greatest moment in electric guitar history. The magazine has also listed him amongst the 25 all-time weirdest guitarists and also one of the 50 fastest guitarists of all time. Okay, so we can skip his childhood, blah, blah, blah. He grew up in California. The Buckethead persona, it came to
that's
be
what I want to know about.
when Carroll saw the 1988 horror movie Halloween 4 and was inspired by the film. He went right out after seeing it and bought a Michael Myers like a white mask. The bucket idea came later that night while eating chicken, and this is a quote from Buckethead.
The idea came when he ate a bucket of chicken and just thought, I might put this bucket on my head.
Boom. A legend was born. He says, I was eating it and I put the mask on and then I put the bucket on my head. I went to the mirror and I just said, Buckethead. That's Buckethead right there. It was just one of those things. And after that, I wanted to be that thing all the time.
Oh,
mean, like, I don't know why I thought there might have been some complexity to the origins of Buckethead.
The Buckethead
but it's
lore,
exactly,
the Buckethead backstory.
It's just exactly what you think.
You know,
it
my
is.
parents found me on a doorstep in a bucket, and I grew up in that bucket. When I was a kid, I was afraid of buckets.
In 2017, Carroll gave a rare out-of-character interview discussing all ranges of his life, the Buckethead character, his parents' deaths, his health problems, and how he copes with overcoming fear. So maybe he was like, maybe he fell down a well and got hit on the head with a bucket.
Well full of buckets. He was down the bottom of the well and there was all these buckets that had been dropped. I mean, that if you were going to fall down a well, like one of the likely things that you would actually fall on is a bunch of buckets, right? Buckets fall down the bottom of wells. He's fallen into a well full of buckets, decided that he would fight crime as Buckethead, and then one day just going, you know what, maybe I'll just learn how to play guitar.
Here's a great quote from Ozzy Osbourne. I tried out that Buckethead guy. I met with him and I asked him to work with me, but only if he got rid of that fucking bucket. So I came back a bit later and he's wearing this green fucking Martian hat thing. I said, look, just be yourself. He told me his name was Brian. So I said, that's what I'll call you. He says, no one calls me Brian except my mother. So I said, pretend I'm your mum then. I haven't even got out of the room and he's already playing fucking mind games with it. And I'm already playing mind games with this guy. What happens is one day he's gone and there's a note saying, hey, I've been beamed up to Mars. Don't get me wrong. He's a great player and he plays like a motherfucker, but he's a weirdo.
When Ozzy Osbourne's telling you that you're a weirdo.
Now, Mike, look, you haven't been with the show even a year yet. You're coming up on a 1-year anniversary. But what I think you'll start to notice, hopefully if this is a long and fruitful relationship, is there's certain storylines that dominate a year of TOFOP. Last year, I'd say it was my issue with magpies. This year, without a doubt, the number one topic has been Donut King. We mentioned it at the start of the show, and this is where we're going to finish. I have been inundated to the point where now I've actually changed my filters and I'm now blocking Donut King content because we did a bit of a deep dive on their business practices and found out that, they've been sued a few times. The company that owns the Donut King franchise have been known not to pay people who are buy into the franchise, which is not a great thing. And, we're all for striking workers here at TOFOP. But I couldn't let this clip show go without a little tip of the hat, a little nod to our most popular topic of the year, Donut King. And we were so lucky to have one of Australia's finest young actors and premier voice actors, Alex Williams, join the show and give us a very personalised reading from the Donut King website.
We've grown up with you. For the average Australian kid, the ultimate reward and break from mum and dad during the weekly shopping excursion was a stop at your local Donut King. It stood out in the food court like a pink beacon, and you couldn't resist.
Oh my God, a pink beacon you can't resist.
The brightly coloured iced donuts, the delight of the cream and jam, the faces pressed to the glass, experiencing the magic and warm cinnamon donuts bouncing along the mini conveyor. And landing in a delicious carousel of cinnamon and sugar. Jeez, went too far with that.
I know, wait till
fresh,
the next line.
Hot and ready to be eaten.
Oh my God, I didn't realise it was quite as erotic until your dulcet tones hit it. A gleaming pink beacon, experiencing the joy of donuts bouncing.
Yeah, maybe this party's going to be a lot better than I thought.
Oh man, it sounds
like a swingers party.
Put your donut keys in the donut bowl.
Here at DK, we've got a new motto: any hole's a goal. So good luck. Have a nice time at the party.
We all know the Donut King fucks. Let's be honest.
Not DK.
He fucks. Oh boy. I now understand why Donut King has not decided to sponsor the show. We're always talking about what that dirty old king's doing, that mad king of the north. Thank you so much for joining us for this compilation episode. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we enjoyed putting it together for you. If I could just remind you, the best way to support the show is still our Patreon, patreon.com/TOFOP. You'll find heaps of bonus content there, ad-free episodes of the show, full-length videos, James Fosdyke's art, even his uncensored art, Too Hot for TV art. You'll find that on Patreon. You can also support us by just leaving a review, following, giving us a follow, recommending us to a friend. Go to YouTube, TOFOP TV, watch our clips, like those. That's about it. Mike, I want to thank you for the year so far. I know we threw you into the deep end. I don't think I was even in Australia when we started recording with you, was I? I was in London.
No, thanks, mate. It's been a lot of fun.
Oh, that's it? I just gave you a lovely wrap up. That's all I get.
That's it.
Thanks. It was fun. Well, fuck you too.
No, it's been great, mate. It's I'm loving watching the TOFOP universe grow.
Good. Don't forget, 2 Guys, 1 Cup, and a bunch of other great stuff coming your way. TOFOP.com for all your TOFOP needs. Hey, Mike, you get to sign off. I'm Charlie Clausen.
I'm Mike Williams.
In brackets, Mike the Third.
How long? Not long. Everyone relax.
Did not forget, I started playing my favourite funny bit from TOFOP so far this year. I found it. Here it is. This is Charlie at the playground. Some bad kids are picking on him and his daughter, and Will gives some advice about how to handle it.
I'm only about 2 feet away, and they're facing me.
Oh, and so it's like you're a duck's bum bum.
You're a duck's bum bum. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And then I can't remember the other insults, but they were all around about, I called me an idiot at one point. He said, you're a dumb idiot.
Did you say that's ableist? I said that's really inappropriate in the year 2023 to use an outdated terminology. Like, I'm fine with duck's bum bum. Absolutely fine with that. But idiot, no thank you. Your generation's meant to be better than this.
Well, I thought I'd take the high road, and so they're hurling out these insults, and I started saying to Iona C, this is not great behaviour.
Yeah.
This is bad manners. Like this, we don't yell things out at people because I thought it could be a good teaching moment. But that just fired them up because they were getting a reaction because clearly I was like trying to change the narrative again. And so they're yelling and yelling and yelling, and I'm like, this is fine. We'll just extract ourselves from the situation. And then I get up to take Anna away, and one of the kids takes a mouthful of water and spits it on us.
Oh, hang on.
And I'm like, holy fucking shit, what? And I see these two mums chatting just to the side, and I'm like, oi! I'm like, are these your kids? And this mum turns around and is like, yeah, that's my boys. And I said, well, one of them just spat water on us. And she's like, oh, okay. And she's gone, whatever his name was, give me the bottle.
Jaden.
And I'm standing there, I'm waiting for like an apology or this kid to get yelled at. Nothing. She just goes back to talking to her friend. And Iona's kind of upset because she's got like water on her little dress. And I'm just like, fucking hell. And I'm feeling sick. And so I'm like, man, fucking, I'm going to fight. And then I'm like, don't do it, man. Like,
punch the kid. You should have punched the kid.
Mate, I didn't want to punch the kid. Kids are kids. I wanted to go up to this mum and say,
spit
what
water
the
in
fuck
her
are you
face.
doing?
No, you've got to go up with some water and you've got to spit it in her. You've got to say
Triple H style.
You've got to say, firstly, you ma'am, you are a Dux Bum Bum. You should say that. And then you take a giant swig out of your water bottle that you carry with you everywhere and you spit it in her face. And then you say, by the way, I've got the bug that's going around.
I should have thought of that. Well, yeah. So it was just one of those things where, you know that you have done the right thing, but you can't help but feel like, did I stand up for myself enough? Did I create change in this moment? You know, what could I have done this better?
Okay,
but then,
let's role play through the scenario again, and I'll just give you my gut instincts on how I would have handled each situation. And I'm not going to think about it.
So am I me and you're the mum?
No, no. Let's go back. Let's go back to the kid situation. So I'm you in this scenario. You're Iona for the start, but you're going to have to play all the characters. You're going to have to play Iona, and then you're going to play the boys. I'm playing you. I'm the person who has to deal with the circumstances as they've arisen. So you start by telling me what's happened. What's happened?
Okay. Daddy, that boy called me a baby.
Oh.
She is a baby. You are a baby.
Well, excuse me, boys. She's not a baby. She's a toddler. In fact,
you're a bum head.
Well, you're a little cunt, aren't you? So.
Mom, Adam Hills called me a cunt.
It's probably not even your real mum. I don't know. Is that your mum? Where's Dad? Is he around?
Listener.